The female lead meets the enigmatic Alex on a train, and his invitation to join his werewolf pack leaves her baffled. But once she steps into this new world, she finds it far more complex than imagined. She must find her place in this unfamiliar environment while dealing with the complicated emotional entanglement with Alex. Can she find happiness in this challenging new world? Join me as we follow the female lead's journey into this mysterious werewolf realm. Chapter 7 in Not a Stalker. Love. The gentle rhythm of the train's movement provided a temporary respite from my racing thoughts, but it wasn't long before they came crashing back with renewed intensity. I found myself scrutinizing the unnamed guy sleeping beside me, his mysterious offer to join his pack hundreds of miles away seeming almost too good to be true. What was his real motive for attending my dead alpha's funeral? The whole situation made my head throb, and I realized with a start that this was the first time in ages I'd given so much thought to a man other than Dom. The realization unsettled both me and my inner wolf. A yawn escaped my lips, and I wondered about the time. Instinctively, I reached for my bag near my feet, searching for my phone. My heart rate spiked when I remembered I'd forgotten it. It's just my luck. Groaning inwardly, I glanced at the guy's leather watch. 330. 7 more hours on this train without my usual distractions. True to my organized nature, I had packed all my books and never forget those, but they were stowed in my other bag on the overhead shelf. Being in the window seat meant I'd have to disturb the sleeping stranger to retrieve them. My cautious side won out. I didn't want to draw attention to myself. Still, boredom gnawed at me relentlessly. As I sat there, trapped between curiosity and caution, I couldn't help but wonder about the pack I'd left behind and the uncertain future ahead. The forest had grown up and seemed a world away now, replaced by the unfamiliar landscape rushing past the train window. I found myself missing the scent of wet grass and earth, the sturdy trees that had kept us hidden for so long. Now I was venturing into unknown territory, both literally and figuratively, with only a mysterious stranger as my guide. The same green trees had been blurring past my window endlessly, leaving me with nothing to do. Even the other passengers seemed to be occupied with something. One man was tapping away ferociously on his iPhone, probably busy with it. A couple were snuggled together and whispering sweetly. One woman was engrossed in a novel, and I really wanted to reach out of my seat and capture the book for myself. Hungry to dive into another world, my eyes quickly darted to the guy's bag on the floor. My brain told me to stay put and not touch someone else's personal belongings, but my curiosity blocked out the logical side in me. Carefully leaning down from the plush seat, I glanced at the guy, making sure he was still fast asleep, and then swiftly captured the bag and gently put it down on the right side of my seat. Out of his vision, I zipped open the brown suede bag to see a wallet, a water bottle, a cell phone which looked unused, and a clipboard with a bunch of papers on it. The thing that caught my eye, though, was a thick book that looked well loved. Gingerly pulling the red worn-out paperback out of the bag, my eyes gleefully widened at the title, Dracula by Bram Stoker. Oh, I always loved a good classic. I gently zipped the bag back closed and placed it back down to its original position where it had rested a few minutes ago. I eagerly flipped open the book to see a North Star written on the inside cover, with impeccably neat handwriting. That meant his name could have been N or anything with the letter A. I turned the crisp pages of the book to the first one and happily nestled into the corner of my seat, sinking into it. The good thing about books was that they never change, whether you were in your bedroom or on a train to your new life. I didn't know how long I'd read for how much time had passed, but on around page 134, my eyes fluttered and I set the book down on my chest. Perhaps I would close my eyes for a minute, but before that minute turned into a long restful sleep, I smiled at a few snowflakes which drifted outside through my window. "Fancy tea," I groaned. Who was trying to wake me up while I was so comfortable and warm? Fancy tea. They were at my ear now. "Shut up, Dom," I cried. But when my eyes opened, it was Dom, and as I saw the guy with confusion, I remembered everything. My face turned red. I would probably never stop embarrassing myself. The guy smiled in response, to dimples becoming apparent. Don't know who that is, but we've arrived, he announced. I sat up straighter and glimpsed out the window. I gasped at the massive pine trees covered in thick folds of white snow. It was snowing like crazy and I cowled and helped but stare in awe. Back at my old pack, this scene was rare. You look like a 5-year-old. Now come on. He snickered behind me. He stood up with his bag and I followed after him, swinging my own over my shoulder. I stretched out my limbs. I was ready to get off this claustrophobic train. It's cold out there. I don't think so. The guy turned around and said firmly, stopping me from getting off the train. He pulled out a grain-knitted hat from his bag and pulled it on my head. I frowned. I don't want to wear this. It's hideous. I complained, as we stepped off the train, adjusting the hat. The sharp, cold air hit my face and I shivered. Wow, you really are a 5-year-old, the guy muttered, walking away from the commotion and passengers. By the way, my grandmother made that for me. Well, tell her to step up her knitting game, I replied, my boots crunching on the ground, which was covered in a blanket of crisp snow. Fine. I will tell her that, he said brightly, if she weren't dead. I stopped in my tracks and my mouth formed an oh my god. I'm so sorry. It's all right, he chuckled. Come on, let's go get something hot to drink. He began walking away from the packed station and I followed him. You don't need to get me anything. I'm fine. I mean, you've already. He turned around, his tufts of light brown hair already covered in snowflakes. I didn't say it was for you. I just haven't had my dose of coffee today. I couldn't help but roll my eyes. So there we were, two strangers sitting in a toasty coffee shop sipping on hot drinks. The guy drank a black coffee while I drank a peppermint hot chocolate, which was delicious. On the way here, we had passed a Starbucks, and the guy snorted and muttered something about being ridiculously expensive. I had agreed, but when we had stopped in front of a crusty little coffee shop, I regretted not stopping there. My mind instantly changed as soon as we'd walked in. The delectable and inviting smells of rich coffee and dark chocolate wafted carelessly through my, removing all former thoughts of Starbucks. It noticed that the guy seemed to be familiar with a lot of people here, not only customers but employees too. He seemed so comfortable sitting there in silence, sipping his black coffee and gazing wordlessly out the window. All throughout my life, I had always been surrounded by alive and talkative people, like Amber and Dominic, but this guy reminded me so much of quiet and mature Arizona. I didn't mind though. I was such an awkward person, it's not like I would be able to make conversation anyways. What would I say? Hey stranger, I'm sorry you had to deal with me and bring me all the way over here. Also sorry about partially stealing your book. I don't think so. So we just sat there. After a few minutes, he cleared his throat. Ahem, he said. I met his serious green eyes. What is it? I asked, tearing my eyes away from the snow outside. I realized, he began, slightly laughing, that I forgot to introduce myself properly. I'm Alexander North, but everyone calls me Alex. I'm assuming you're Destiny. I blinked. How the hell did he know my real name? I'd never told him my full name, let alone my nickname. I'm not a stalker. Love. I heard your friend call you that, he quickly mentioned. I was about to correct him and tell him to call me D, but if this was going to be my fresh start, then it wouldn't hurt to be called Destiny once again. Yeah, I'm Destiny. Destiny Evans, I replied. He furrowed his brows and rested his chin in his hands. Evans. He trailed off. I instantly looked away, a feeling of sadness washing through me. It was my fault that my father was a human, a helpless human, fighting to stay alive every day. It made me glad that I was just one more weight lifted from his shoulders. All right, we should get going now. Alpha Jace won't be too happy if I come any later, he declared, standing up. He drained his mug and then set it down. I stood up as well, fumbling through my pockets for some change. "No need," he said calmly, walking towards the exit. My eyes grew wide. "You're just going to leave?" I furiously whispered. On his tracks. He opened the door and the harsh wind whipped me in the face. Oh, I was a serial killer. And now I've been downgraded to a thief. Quite an imagination you've got there. "Destiny," he smirked all too casually. "I work there part-time." He walked towards a thick pine forest across the street. It was huge and looked like it was an endless sea of snow-capped trees. "We're going to change forms," he said when we made it into the forest. I stopped him. "Out here in the cold." "What? Where?" I questioned. Was this Alex guy crazy or something? "Calm down. There's an outhouse on your far left." "Hurry." I was frazzled, but I ran into it and stripped off my clothing and took off my glasses as fast as I could and transformed. I piled my clothes into my bag. My teeth chattered as my bones expanded and my limbs grew shaggier and longer. When my thick coat of fur finally covered me, I grabbed my bag in my mouth and dashed out. I spotted a light brown wolf. So light was almost golden and seemed to have a white gleam to its fur. When I saw its familiar green eyes, I hopped to the wolf. Alex tilted his head, indicating for me follow. I rustled my fur and followed his steady footprints in the quiet evergreen forest. It was hard to keep up behind him, as not only did I have his snowy footprints to follow, but I was fast. After I had agreed to go with Alex all of those hours ago, I had wished for a social companion. Although now I was glad he didn't talk much, it gave me time to gaze at the wondrous beauty around me. After a couple more minutes of dodging pine trees and trudging through snow, Alex turned around and nodded his head, telling me that we were here. Various scents drifted around me, and they were so different than what I was used to. Back home, everyone had a breezy, summery type of tropical scent, whereas everything that I smelled right now consisted of peppermint, vanilla, cocoa, and more. As soon as Alex and I finally got out of the forest, I gaped at a giant white marble mansion that was definitely much larger than my old pack house. It looked intimidating. I then noticed the other wolves around me and blinked at their beautiful white fur, and they stared back at me. A few of the bigger wolves growled at me while others barked to each other in confusion. I kept my head low and trotted a bit closer to Alex, just to be on the safe side. Alex seemed to be ignoring everyone and simply walked past them without a second glance, although it didn't seem to be an authoritative way. I even realized after a few seconds that the wolves were growling more at him than me. He nudged open the large white doors, walked in. I hesitated for a second, not fully ready to walk into another pack house. After a couple of moments, I made my way in. I didn't have time to look around at my surroundings as Alex began running down a hallway. I dashed after him and stopped when we reached a large black door. I shuddered. I could feel the aura of power. I looked up and saw the engraved golden letters which read Alpha. Crap. I hadn't been prepared to talk to an alpha. Nonetheless, Alex began barking at the door and wolves passing by glared at him. I was about to shoo them off, but then the door creaked open. A massive black wolf with golden eyes like a king's growled. My eyes darted to Alex's wolf, which was leaner than the alpha. The alpha didn't even take one look at me before he walked back into his room. Alex pointed his head to a bathroom and then walked in after his leader. The door shut in my face and I let out a breath that I hadn't known had been holding. I guess it was time for me to transform back and out of my auburn wolf. Now I would be in an unfamiliar pack without my impeccable wolf senses and just a crusty pair of glasses. So this is where my new life would start. Chapter 8. Shakespeare was secretly gay. After what had felt like hours upon hours of sitting against the wall in front of the large menacing door to the alpha's room, Alex walked out. Even though he was still in his wolf form, he looked bewildered but somewhat accomplished. He ran to the bathroom and a few minutes later he came out, fully clothed and brown hair tousled. "Alrighty, since you don't have your own room yet, you'll be staying in mine," he declared, standing in front of me. I instantly stood up, my inner wolf growling with cautiousness. "I don't think that's a good idea." "I mean," he laughed, cutting me off. "Calm down. Destiny. I'll be staying in Lucy's room, he said. I sighed in relief. He had a mate and I had nothing to worry about. Well, I never got to thank you properly. So thanks. It really means a lot to me, and I just want you to know that I appreciate it that you brought me here, I mentioned. Yeah, it's fine, he replied, smiling at me warmly. I'll go pack up a few things from my room and then you can make yourself right home. Be right back. Home. Was this really home now? It felt so weird. The memory of my mother when she'd dropped me off at my old pack house and told me that it'd be safe there and she'd come back one day drifted into my mind. As an 8-year-old, it had been hard to adjust to living in such a new environment. But it been even harder to process the realization that she was going to come back. I was never really a big fan of change, but last year had taught me that life changes whether you do like it or not. I let the memory slip back into the folds of my mind and thought about what was taking Alex so long. I had grown pretty restless, being in the same spot for a while now. I scooped up my bag and adjusted my messy ponytail. I almost forgot that I was still right outside of the Alpha's door. I thanked the moon goddess that I was hidden away from anyone else's view right now. I knew for sure that people would judge me the way a couple of them had outside. It made sense though, considering I was a new and small wolf from the enemy's pack. They had every right to not include me. Sorry I took a while. I would take you upstairs, but I have somewhere to be at the moment. Alex appeared in front of me, wearing a long beige coat and his warm smile. Just go to the 3rd floor and turn to the right. When you see a light turquoise door, use this key. He tossed me a small silver key which I surprisingly caught. Thanks, Alex. I grinned. Don't mention it. Anyways, I have to get going. I'll catch hay later. Love. He waved and ran off. I examined the silver key in my hand and smiled at it. Time to find that turquoise door. After running through 3 flights of wide marble stairs with my petite legs, I was out of breath. The turquoise door was hard to find, and I stood before it and clicked the silver key into it. I opened the door and smiled at the large room in front of me. It had a massive bed with many gray pillows and looked so inviting. The bed was so neatly arranged that I didn't even jump on it, even though the thought came to mind. I slipped off my boots on a mat to the right and then walked over to the bed and sunk in it. I sighted content lie and stretched onto it, inhaling the fresh smell of mint and soap and just the freshness of it all. I almost fell asleep right then and there, but I realized that I was still in the sweatshirt and jeans I was a while ago. I furrowed my eyebrows at the thought of hours ago. It already felt like it'd been here forever. I got off the bed and rummaged through my bag, flinging out some warm sweatpants and a graphic sweatshirt. I also grabbed a clean towel from my bag and headed for a white door which I assumed led to the bathroom. I gaped at the level of organization the bottles of shampoo and body wash lined up neatly. Everything in the drawers uncluttered and orderly. The mirror was shiny, and the sink and shower was spotless. Alex must have been a neat freak. After my long shower, I slayed across the bed again and observed his room. Everything was super tidy and clean. A row of crisp books atop his white desk and grinned. I guess I would be borrowing some of his books. My eyes flitted over to a picture frame on his desk, proudly displayed in a clean white frame. The picture showed a gorgeous blonde-haired girl with sparkling green eyes, a beautiful smile. So this must have been Alex's mate, Lucy. My heart melted at how sweet it was that he had a picture of her on his desk. It kind of made me happy knowing that even nerds like this guy had good mates. I slipped off my ruddy glasses and placed them on the nightstand beside the bed and let my hair out of its ponytail. I nestled into the bed comfortably, tucked in its soft blankets and warmth, swaying away into a dreamless sleep. The sudden creak of a door woke me up, causing me to sit up abruptly. I squinted my eyes to see a wide-eyed Alex slipping on a familiar dark apron and a name tag. I tried to stifle my laugh, but I couldn't help it. He looked like such a dork in his barista outfit. Sorry, I forgot my uniform, he said, grabbing a pair of keys off the desk. It's cool, I mumbled sleepily, laying back down in the massive bed. He said something I couldn't quite make out and then shut the door. As I was about to fall back into my sleep, my stomach grumbled loudly. Now that I was hungry, sleep was definitely beyond my reach. I weighed the options in my head. I could either go out and explore the mansion, pack house, and grab a few bites, or I could stay here in the comfort of all of these pillows and warm blankets. The latter seemed so much more appealing to me, but it'd have to come out of the room sooner or later. Right. And now that I was calling myself Destiny again, I could be a new person, instead of being lazy. Oh D. Maybe now I could be a morning person. But even the thought of being a morning person was tiring. Yet the thought of food was so much more welcoming. I managed to crawl out of the bed and made my hair look somewhat acceptable. I straightened out my sweatshirt and debated whether I should have changed out of my sweatpants. Should I really make a good first impression? Whatever. People would judge me either way. I opened the door and stepped outside into the strangely empty hallway. Vastly different from my old pack house, which was always bustling with noise and people. I found the massive marble staircase and took some time coming down the stairs. I passed by some wolves who all saw me coming and moved to the other side of the staircase. They'd probably noticed my unfamiliar scent. Wait, what did I even smell like? I felt very uncomfortable. Not only from the fact that I was clearly an outsider and that this would never be my real home, but I felt more left out now than I did at my old pack house. I stopped in the middle of the stairs, deep in thought. I'd dealt with being invisible for a good year, and it had terrified me of how fast people could leave you. People I'd known my whole life. People who'd seen me laugh, cry, and smile. They'd left me in a matter of days. I hadn't even known people were capable of that. Hey new girl, you lost. I jumped slightly at the voice that fractured my thoughts and turned around. I came face to face with the pretty girls, tall, bronze, and almost identical. Actually, no, I stuttered, thinking of what to say. Oh no, I'm not lost. Sometimes I like to block the stairway and think about my demented life. How about you? Shut up. Roy, I'm sorry about her. She's joking. The girl on the right piped up. What's your name? Destiny. I tried to smile, but my very few social skills decided to disappear. How convenient. That's a pretty name. Rory. The girl on the left said. And this is obviously my twin sister. Rosalind. She gestured to the girl on the right. I raised my eyebrows at the name Rosalind. Rosalind from As You Like It. Shakespeare, eh? I blurted out. Rosalind smiled brightly. Wow, Destiny. You're one of the few people who actually know that. Impressed. Rosalind exclaimed. Yeah, my mom was a big fan of Shakespeare. So that's why she named me this. Theft. Thank God I got the normal name. Personally, I think Shakespeare was secretly gay and was drunk while writing those plays. Rory laughed. I laughed as well as Rosalind elbowed her. These twins were funny and super nice. Destiny here thinks it's nice. Rosalind growled at her sister. I nodded. In agreement. So how old are ya? Questioned Rory. I'm 17. I replied, ignoring their popping eyes at my answer. Aw, you're so cute and small though, she said. I smiled weakly in response. Did Dominic just see me as a small and cute little girl and nothing ever more? I shook my head slightly. I had to stop thinking about him. Stupid mate Paul. Hey, she didn't mean it. Rosalind scolded. Rory's 19, but she acts like she's 5. Don't take anything she says seriously. I'll keep that in mind. I replied. Anyways, it was so nice meeting you guys, but I'm going to go grab something to eat if you don't mind. They nodded together, and for a second, I couldn't tell them apart. I then remembered that Rory was the one with small scar by her chin and Rosalind had a beauty mark near her eye. If you want to hang out, our room is on the first floor. Hollered Rory as they walked up the stairs and waved. I nodded and continued down the stairs. I couldn't process the fact that I had actually made some friends who acknowledged me as a normal person. It was a great feeling. Once I finally made it downstairs. The smell of freshly baked cookies hit my nose and my stomach let out a grumble in response. The smell led to a white marble kitchen, and I found a young girl and boy with cookie batter smeared on their white aprons. They looked at me and stopped whatever they were doing and began whispering, as if I was there. Maybe I should come back at another time. Ahem. I could immediately sense the authority and moved to the side, letting the woman enter. The woman had long red hair, ferocious golden eyes, and cheekbones sharper than a knife. She was a beautiful Luna. Molly, Kevin, those cookies look wonderful. Although it would be nice if you offered some to our newest member of the pack, she said gently but sternly. The kids didn't think twice before holding up the plate to me. I snagged one off the plate and smiled at them in response, even though I knew I could probably devour all of the cookies. I opened my mouth to say something to them, but my eyes caught the Lunas and I faced her. Thank you, Luna. Luna Arcadia. She answered with a warm smile. Luna Arcadia. It's a pleasure to meet you. My name is Destiny Evans. I replied, trying to ignore her raised eyebrows at my last name. At this point, I wasn't even surprised anymore. Well, feel free to grab some breakfast. Destiny, she said. Also, I don't think Alpha Jace gave you a job yet. Job like a cashier or what? The Luna chuckled at my confused expression. All right. After breakfast, please meet me in my office, which is just down the hall. The white door on the left, she said. She nodded at me, smiled at Molly and Kevin, and gracefully strolled off. Well, this pack did not like to waste time at all. As I bit into the cookie at last, I almost died right there. It was amazing. So you like the cookies? Molly shyly asked, her round doe-like eyes peering at me. I nodded enthusiastically. She offered me a plate with some more on them, and I gratefully accepted. And how old are you guys? I asked, taking a seat on one of the stools by the countertop. Werewolves, Kevin answered, taking off his apron and beginning on the dishes. Wow, when I was 12. I can't even make toast without burning it. I sighed. I could hear them both snicker, and it made my day knowing that it just made the kids a barely known laugh. I watched Molly and Kevin whisper together and nudge each other, like best friends, and I couldn't help but be reminded of Dominic and Di as kids. Chapter 9, Shed Killed a Smurf. After briefly meeting with Luna Arcadia, who was way nicer than it expected together, we'd determine what job would be good for someone my size. After failing to pick up heavy boxes or run fast from room to room, the Luna found a job for me. She told me that I'd be working in one of the offices in the pack's deliveries. She explained how the Arctic Lights pack held the largest supply of frozen water, which helped to make our wolves strong and healthy, as it was really fresh and carried lots of minerals. It was a precious resource that was traded and sold to our neighboring packs. My job was to reply to emails from the other packs and create lists and schedules revolving around what was being traded, sold, and bought. These lists would be given to the driver of the deliveries. After all of that explaining, Luna Arcadia told me that I'd be starting my job tomorrow and would get paid every month. It really surprised me of how organized this pack was. After we'd said our goodbyes, it ran to the 3rd floor and arrived there panting. I hadn't really been active for a whole year like I used to be. Maybe it'd go for more runs now, since the shirtless jerks who made your heart rate multiply by 1,000 around here. I pushed the turquoise door open and thought about what I'd do for the rest of the day. Staring out of the massive glass window, I watched the snowflakes falling beautifully without a care. Who could ever get sick of a sight like this? Past the snowflakes, the 3rd floor had a view beyond the evergreen forest. I could make out some buildings in an old little downtown area. If I was going to really stay in this pack, it wouldn't be such a bad idea to start getting familiar with the area. I decided to change out of my sweats and into a more appropriate outfit composed of dark, skinny jeans and a comfortable, oversized baby pink sweater which smelled fondly of my mom's perfume. No matter how many times I'd been washed, I adjusted my glasses and quickly tied my hair into a somewhat presentable side fistate braid. As I pulled on a pair of short boots, I realized that I didn't have a coat. Back in Meadowville, where my old pack was situated, It was always sunny and warm with mild winters that only required sweaters. It rarely snowed there, which meant that I hadn't needed a coat. But I did now. Oh shit. I then remembered Alex mentioning his mate, Lucy, since the twins were out at the moment. Maybe she could help me. But where could she even be? And what would I say? That I'm staying in her mate's room and needed to steal a jacket now. I couldn't just walk up to a random girl and ask for a coat. Maybe I'd just sit here and wait till Alex would come back. Although that probably made me come off as a needy little teenager who couldn't do anything by herself. So I should probably leave him alone. So where would I get a jacket? I need to stop freaking overthinking. I sighed. If Amber were here, she would have snapped at me and told me to get my ass to business. Unfortunately, I was awkward and Amber washed. She didn't know that I dreaded meeting new people. My eyes trailed over to Alex's closet, and as bad as I felt snooping around in his personal belongings, maybe there was a coat I could borrow. Next month, when I would get my paycheck, I'd buy myself a coat, right after a few new books. I strode over to the closet and cautiously opened it and gasped when I saw what was inside. It was like a dream come true. No, there wasn't a bunch of nice shoes, makeup, or stacks of money, but a large bookshelf filled with books. Wow, I breathed, flabbergasted at the wondrous sight. I dragged my fingers along the worn-out spines of the books and felt a familiar sense of home rush through me. I pulled out one and smiled. Pride and Prejudice. It seemed like Alex was into classics. I gently flipped it open to the inner title page and saw loopy yet elegant handwriting that read, "You must allow me to tell you how ardently I admire and love you." I smiled at the famous quote by the ever-so-charming character, Mr. Darcy. At the end of the quote it said, "From Lucy." I closed the book and stuck it back where I found it. That was the cutest thing ever seen. Suddenly, there was a startling knock at the door that made me close the closet swiftly. I scrambled to the door and opened it, peering out of it. I blinked in awe at the girl in front of me. She had electric blue hair, cherry red lips, and defined cheekbones, but her sparkling green eyes gave her identity away. She was Lucy. She looked like she'd killed a Smurf and used it to dye her hair. I felt plain compared to her, in my sweater and jeans, while she looked alive and daring. I noticed that her brows were knitted and she curiously looked at me up and down. "Are you in the wrong room or?" she questioned. I could already tell by her expression that she was assuming things of why I was in her mate's room. "What?" No. "I will." I fumbled. "My name's Destiny God." I was completely embarrassing myself as usual. I don't think there would ever be a day where I would make out a proper sentence without the awkwardness. She grinned and nodded. "Oh, I understand now. My bad," she replied kindly, her green eyes looking past my shoulder and examining the room. I stepped aside, opening the door wider. "You can come in, Lucy," I said. Oops. I'd forgotten that she hadn't even told me her name yet. Did that make me look like a stalker? "Oh, Alex has already introduced me without me being there." "Again," she commented, rolling her eyes with a smile. I noticed that at the mention of his name, her bold eyes softened. I smiled. She was going through his desk and then pulled out a piece of paper. "Phew, I thought I'd never find this," she said to me. "Anyways, sorry if I disturbed you. Destiny, I heard you're only 17 and pretty new to the pack. So if you need anything, I'm on the second floor, room 204. She was about to walk out of the room before I quickly managed to yell out something. "Wait," I yelped. She turned around and raised an eyebrow at me expectantly. "I kind of need a coat and I was just wondering if you had one that I could borrow." Lucy nodded animatedly. "No problem. Follow me." I closed the door behind me and took after her. "Geez, everyone is so nice around here," I mumbled. "Are we?" Lucy laughed. My eyes widened. Oh God, did I just say that out loud? I sighed. Lucy's laughter echoed through the corridor. We leapt down the marble stairs, and surprisingly I didn't even fall. I continued to follow her to the second floor, which I noticed was a bit more lively than the quiet third floor. People moved past me, and a few of them still glanced at me. The newcomer. "You said we're all so nice here," Lucy said, turning a key in a brown door. "Why, what was it like at your old pack?" "It was pretty much straight up, I guess," I quietly replied, fingering the edges of my sweater. There were a million other things I could have said about my old pack, the way they stopped including me, how they isolated me, how my old friends turned on me so fast, but I didn't. I just wanted to forget about all of those things. Besides, no one here had to know how weak and intimidated it did. It would just embarrass me even more. "Oh, I see. Anyhow, I bought this coat the other day, and after I washed it, holy crap, it didn't fit me anymore. I didn't know what to do with it, but now I can see that it'll probably fit you," Lucy chortled, stepping into her bedroom. Her room was as big as Alex's upstairs, but she didn't have a humongous bed. The walls were painted pale yellow, and she had an overall bright room. I noted that in the corner of her room laid a bunch of sports equipment ranging from soccer balls to snowboards. As I observed her room, Lucy pulled out a long beige coat with chestnut-colored buttons. I gaped at it. It looked so expensive. Are you sure that's the one?" I asked. She beamed and handed it to me. I clutched the soft suede coat in my hand and silently marveled at the thickness and luxurious quality of it. "This would definitely keep me warm in the endless snow out there. It'll look great on you." Lucy smiled. She then glanced at her silver watch and yelped. "Shit, I have to get going," she murmured. "I have a snowboarding tournament and very soon." I thanked her and then left her room. In the hallway, I shrugged on the coat. To my surprise, it fit snugly and felt comfortable. The material was light, soft, and opulent, and Lucy probably wore these type of clothes all of the time. But whatever. Clothes didn't define a person. Tell that to Dominic. A voice in my head sneered. My voice. That whole other part of me that wouldn't let him go. It would always find a way to connect everything back to him. Such as if I were brushing my teeth. My mind would suddenly remember Dom's all-time favorite brand of toothpaste. Or I could even be thinking about socks and remember how he would always get me a new pair of fuzzy ones for Christmas. It got tedious that I thought about him so often when he probably forgot about me the day he rejected me. It was just the fact that a part of my mind couldn't let him go. It was that every time I'd think about him, a sliver of pain would arrive. Maybe if we hadn't been best friends, then the mate pull right now wouldn't have been so strong. Why did a rejection have to mentally scar me this way? Yet I didn't regret being his best friend. Hell, even though it had caused me so much pain in the end. I would do it all over again for those breathtaking childhood memories HED given me. Dom had always been that one goody, cool friend that was always down for adventures. I snickered, remembering that one time when he was 10 and got stuck at the very top of a towering oak tree. I had to call the alpha to get him out and HED been angry. "Don't stand in the middle of the hallway, foreigner," demanded a gruff voice, dragging me back to reality. I was about to glare at him, but didn't when I saw a huge guy covered in tattoos in interesting places. "Sorry," I mumbled, moving to the side, letting the enormous man walk past. God, there were so many different types of people in this pack. I thought of graceful Rosalind, hyper Rory, athletic Lucy, and of course mature Alex. Would an awkward book nerd like me really fit into this pack? Well, only time would tell. The thought of being an awkward book nerd reminded me that I needed to find some new reading material. I guess it was time to find out whether this town had a library now that had successfully acquired a coat. Chapter 10. Fallen in Love with a Library. After making it through the front doors of the pack and stumbling across a variety of different pack members, it was much easier for me to be able to breathe again and not be awkward. I was finally out in the open, inhaling the crisp and cold air which was so unlike the humid and warm atmosphere back home. I had decided to not change into my wolf form so I could be familiar with this territory with my normal human senses. And after a peaceful and quiet walk through the snow-filled forest, I found my way out easily. In no time, I was strolling through downtown and passed by a small convenience store, a few restaurants, and the coffee shop where Alex worked at. The most important building, though, was the library. The small town had a nice, rustic charm to it, with beautiful brick buildings, antique lampposts, and polished wood benches. It was like a place I'd always read in books, and with the careless snowflakes drifting around, it was even prettier in real life. I felt as though I was walking around in a giant picturesque snow globe. It was incredible that of all of the places I could have ended up, I ended up here. Even though it was a huge change, I couldn't have been happier. I think a small and quiet town, wintry town, would do me some good. The streets weren't too empty, but they weren't too crowded either. I saw old couples strolling on the sidewalks as if it were a warm day. I saw young couples coming out of the coffee shop, looking content, hand in hand. I spotted wolves mischievously goofing around. I saw people going on with their day. Whenever I passed by a wolf, they'd look me and instantly realize that I was someone new. Obviously from a way different pack nowhere close to here. Aside from the fact that I was mesmerized by everything around me, they could tell by the color of my eyes that I was new. It realized that majority of the Arctic wolves around here had cool eyes, in the brisk colors of blue, green, violet, and teal, while my own eyes were a plain honey brown. But the other wolves just nodded at me and I felt strangely accepted. That feeling of acceptance felt like a nice warm hug. I hadn't felt like this in a long time, and I embraced it. It learned that it was something to not take for granted. When I made it to the library, I clutched the cold metal railing and cautiously pattered up the icy stone steps, being careful to not slip and fall on my face and shatter my glasses. Since it was a Tuesday, the library sign read that it would be closing at 8 p.m. It was plenty of time to read and get back to the pack house. I heaved open the grand russet doors and stepped in. I smiled as I was washed in warmth and the smell of ink greeted my nose. It felt like home. I observed the tremendously high ceilings, the plush gray carpet, and obviously the tall bookshelves. The walls were painted the most beautiful shade of olive green, and there were massive glass windows everywhere displaying the scenic streets and carrying in rays of sunlight. I had quite possibly fallen in love with a library. "I can tell it's your first time here," laughed a kind, old voice. I swiveled around to see an elderly lady with fluffy gray hair and thin black circular glasses, almost similar to mine. Her large front desk proudly displayed a place card reading her name, Mrs. Winchester, head librarian. I smiled at her. This library, I couldn't quite find a good enough word to describe it despite my massive vocabulary. Just wow. She laughed again, her hazel eyes filling with joy. It makes me happy to see a young person so intrigued. Many of those youngsters are so caught up in their technological devices nowadays, sighed Mrs. Winchester, nodding her head. "I'm assuming you would like a library card." I nodded a little too eagerly, and then stopped my bobbing head quickly, remembering that I was 17, and not a 6-year-old. "Oh goody," she beamed. "You'll just need to fill out this small form, dear." I accepted the sheet and pen from her and filled out some information. When I handed her back the form, her hazel eyes got even brighter, if that was even possible. "Death, what a lovely name," she exclaimed, beginning to type out the information very slowly on a chunky keyboard. "Thank you," I replied, as she handed me a shiny library card. I elegantly signed my name at the back, grinning at the fresh card that would give me access to an innumerable amount of other worlds. "You remind me of this one gentleman. He is so eager whenever he comes to pick up books. Such a sweetheart," she mumbled, returning back to her work. I wonder who this sweetheart was, because he was definitely appealing to me. I could definitely use a book-loving boyfriend in my life any day, though I don't think anyone would want to have a clumsy, awkward, and small geek as a girlfriend. I was about to ask for his name when a lurching feeling arrived in my stomach. The name Dominic entered my head slyly, whispering it over and over again. I suddenly didn't feel like asking for the name anymore. I bet Dominic S. already found a girl by now. I couldn't help but wonder as I searched for a book. It was an unrealistic statement. Girls were always swooning over him. It kind of killed my mood to think about Dom laughing with another girl, going on adventures with her, giving her his signature smirk. I bet all of that was happening right now. Whatever, I thought crudely. I finally picked up a book that seemed interesting and discovered a comfy armchair by the back of the shelves. It faced one of the big windows which showed the falling snowflakes that I couldn't get enough. I comfortably sunk into the armchair and allowed myself to escape into the crisp pages full of inked words that would take me away from my thoughts. I hadn't even noticed that the sun had set when I finished the 12th chapter of the novel. I closed the book, noting the page I was on, and walked to the front entrance of the library. Poor Mrs. Winchester looked baffled to see me. "Oh, I forgot you were here. Destiny," she chortles. I chuckled sheepishly. Why did I always lose track of time when I read? As she checked out the book for me, I wondered if I'd be able to get to the pack house on my own. It was getting pretty dark, and I still wasn't completely familiar with my surroundings yet. I knew for a fact that Mrs. Winchester was a wolf, so asking her for a ride home definitely wasn't an option. "Here you go, dear. Now get home safe. You wouldn't want your parents to worry about you." I smiled in return, trying not to roll my eyes. I left the building pondering why everyone just assumed we were all lucky enough to have parents. The frigid air hugged me, and I squinted through the cold wind, my glasses not shielding my eyes fully. I really needed to get back to the pack house. I looked down the street and saw the coffee shop where Alex worked at. Maybe I'd find a wolf there to help me get home. I walked against the rapid wind, thinking of how stupid I was. I was already lost. Luckily, though, the smell of dark roast coffee had wafted into my nose pleasantly and gave me some comfort. As I trudged open the door, I was enveloped in the calming scent. I sauntered in, looking around for any wolves that I might recognize from the pack. I noticed wolves, but not any that seemed familiar to me. I slipped into an empty booth by the side and almost laughed when I saw who was at the counter, serving people. Alex was there, in a dark-colored apron, giving customers his dimpled smile. I watched him for a few minutes, joking around with the other baristas, chatting with customers, and sometimes completely zoning out. I shook my head. Staring at Alex's work wouldn't get me home, and I probably looked like a major creep. A large figure walked past my booth, and I recognized his scent and shot up from my seat, tapping him bluntly. I had smelled it somewhere in the pack mansion. He whipped around to face me. "What the?" he muttered, beating my eyes but not recognizing me. You're E from the Arctic Lights back, right?" I asked, my voice quiet. He ran a hand through his light blonde hair and knitted his eyebrows together. He studied my murky brown eyes, which didn't fit in here, and probably noticed my summery scent as well. He clearly didn't trust me. I cleared my throat. "I'm actually new to the pack. I assured him, trailing off. He suddenly smiled. In that case, you must be lost." He snickered. I could feel my face turning a bit pink. Was I that easy to read? "Don't worry about it, Destiny. It happens to all of the new ones," he said. He gestured for me to follow him as he opened the door and stepped outside. I followed after him, watching my boots make tracks in the new layer of snow. It was satisfying. "You'll get used to this pesky snow after a while." He exhaled. "So where do y'all come from? I don't even know your name, and you're asking me that." I snorted. "Then shut up. I couldn't go around sassing people like it was my old pack anymore. Because losing friends was the last thing I needed right now." To my surprise, though, he laughed, stopping beside me in the middle of the forest, and laughed. His dark blue eyes glimmered. "The name's Fox. I'm 18. He smiled. I could feel my eyes almost popping out of their sockets. There was no way in hell that was only 18. "But you're so huge," I said slowly, observing his athletic and muscular frame. He looked as surprised as me. "Whoa, I think you're the first person who hasn't asked about my name," he declared with a grin. Oh yeah, that too, I added with a smile as we continued walking. Well, my scary size comes from the fact that I'm the gamma of Arctic lights. He started. Oh God. I should have been respectful, but instead I had SS the gamma. And I get the name Fox from my mom. But why Fox? I mean, this may come off as a surprise, but I'm pretty sure you're a wolf. I joked. Well. My mom had gorgeous fiery red hair, and my dad would always joke about how instead of a werewolf, it'd be a fox. He laughed. So when I was born, they were completely shocked that I had acquired my dad's looks. I had blonde hair, dark blue eyes. I looked nothing like a Dodden fox. My real name's Charlie, but my parents would jokingly call me Fox. And I guess that name stuck. I don't really care though. I find it quite amusing. I smiled to myself as I listened to Fox ramble on about his childhood. It was nice to hear stories of his parents and his memories as child. He seemed like such a happy guy. And the fact that HED told this all to someone he literally met 10 minutes ago was entertaining. So where does a pretty name like yours come from? Sunshine, he asked. Oh, well, geez, what do I say? I didn't have any funny childhood stories to tell about my mom or dad. If this was a fresh start, then I decided that I wouldn't bring them up at all. Yeah, I think it was my dad or something who gave me this name, which resulted in all of the puns that people use when they meet me. I explained. It was true. My dad had given me this name, but I had totally skipped the part of how HED named me Destiny because he thought I would help him. What a joke. I was nothing but a useless child who turned out to be an unwanted little wolf pup. After a few more minutes of walking and talking, Fox and I made it to the pack house. I was happy that another friend, who might I say was attractive and humorous. Anyways, it was nice meeting you. I got a bunch of important gamma stuff to do tomorrow, but I need to tell you one thing, he said while I stood at the foot of the staircase. I really enjoyed talking to you. Fox, and yeah. What is it? I think it was destiny that we met. He smirked. He dashed off, leaving me there to shake my head. Fox was quite a guy. Chapter 11. I don't think I want a sugar daddy. You know. Destiny, you're doing quite well at this job so far. You're working very efficiently. So today you'll be working on the mails and lists. Luna Arcadia beamed, her golden eyes bright. I'm actually not surprised though. I've seen you run off to the library multiple times this week. That's when I knew you were perfectly capable of doing this job. I grinned. Not only was I doing well in my pack job, but the Luna actually noticed what a huge book nerd I was. Our delivery man is actually a very avid reader himself. HES constantly reading in between his breaks, she added. I was about to ask about the delivery man when a voice yelled it out, startling the both of us. Arcadia, Kate needs you. The authoritative voice lovingly called the Luna by her first name, although Alpha Jace came across as a scary man. He was a softie at heart. Luna Arcadia rolled her eyes and then waved apologetically at me, dashing off to tend to her husband and daughter. They were such a cute family. I stood there at my desk, not knowing what to do. I still had a ton of work left, but the Luna had forgotten to give me the password for the packy mail. I sat down in my spinning chair and spun around, letting my mind drift away. I thought about the delivery man who loved to read. Did he have any good book recommendations? I suddenly snickered, imagining a plump man with a thick mustache and a semi-bald head, sitting in his car reading a book while. Why are you spinning around in your chair looking lost? I pinned around to see Alexander looming over me. His golden brown hair was rumpled and his green eyes were filled to the brim with amusement. Because I am. I snorted, adjusting my glasses. It was time to bring the sassy part of the old D back. I was definitely way more comfortable in this pack now. Aren't you always lost? He rolled his eyes. So are you going to help me, or are you going to continue being useless and stare at my small height? I asked. Not everyone in this pack is a giant. 5-year-old. He mumbled under his breath. I elbowed him. Hard. Help me, you old man. I demanded. Chill. I'm coming, fetus. He replied. logging into the desktop computer and opening up the email. I found it funny how only 3 weeks ago, we'd been merely strangers to one another and now we were practically brother and sister. Alex showed me the email and password and explained a few things. I thanked him but still had one question. So, who's this famous delivery man I gotta give this to? I questioned. He raised an eyebrow. Famous. I almost fell off my chair in a burst of laughter. Alex was the freaking delivery guy. The image of the bald mustached man popped into my head, which made me laugh even harder. What? He asked. I kept laughing, unable to stop. Destiny. Holy shit. I don't know when you're going to stop laughing at whatever, but leave the finished lists on the desk in my room every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. I made myself calm down and I apologized. All right. Sorry. My room. Your desk. Got it. Chief. Or should I say, delivery man. I smothered a laugh. He sighed, giving me an annoyed smile. Get to work, Dest. It's Wednesday. I'll catch you later. He waved. I said bye and began sorting through emails in my spinning chair, which I grew to love quickly. Every once in a while, the image of the chubby delivery man would come into my head and did need to pretend to cough to suppress my laughter. The other people in the room at their desks gave me weird looks. Oh well. When I finished the list and cleared all of the emails, the others gave me even weirder looks than before. I ignored them and stretched, tired from sitting in the chair for over 2 hours. Eager to get out of the office room, I snatched the completed list and wandered out of the room. Going through the kitchen, I smiled at Molly and Kevin, who beamed back at me. I think they liked me better now, as the past few weeks had been chatting with them over breakfast, listening to their humorous stories. I even told them a bunch of stories about Dom and I. Of course, I never mentioned his name, but with 2 kids that resembled him and I so closely, I couldn't miss the opportunity of telling them stories of our own. I winked at Kevin, and he tossed me a cookie from afar. I jumped and caught it with my mouth and almost moaned. It was a red velvet cookie, my favorite flavor, baked to warm perfection, almost too perfect for this world. I could hear them snicker as I snagged a few more cookies and dashed to the 3rd floor. When I made it to the front of the turquoise door, I was about to open the door when I noticed it was locked. I even heard voices inside of the room and I realized it was Lucy and Alex. I don't understand, she cried with clear frustration in her voice. Come on, Lucy. Alex sighed. Christmas is less than 2 months away. You can't just do that. I could tell that he was frustrated as well, which was surprising since he was always so calm. But his voice was gentle as usual. Yes, I can, Lucy replied fiercely. What the hell were they even fighting about? Lucy, he said, his voice even softer than before, giving me goosebumps. Hey, don't cry. Hey, please. And that was all it took for me to back away, slowly away from the quarrel that was clearly none of my business. My mind couldn't even process what possibly could have been happening. Did mates normally fight like this? I could tell by Alex's voice that there was so much love in it. He was so delicate with her. Lucy, on the other hand, was full of fire and ice at the same time. Their personalities were so wildly different yet somehow contrasted. Still backing away slowly, a wave of sadness rolled through me out of nowhere. It really sucked how much people took each other for granted. Whoa, Webowitch, you okay? You almost ran into me there. A pair of steady hands were on my shoulders. I spun around to see a startled Fox. When he saw my face, his smile faded. What's wrong, Sunshine? He asked, concern taking over his voice. I swallowed the lump in my throat and forced myself to stand straight. Nothing, I lied, releasing the fierce grip I had on the list. He just stood there, dazed. He ran a hand through his light blonde hair. Well, okay, he replied awkwardly, not quite believing me. I was about to apologize when I heard a loud door slam. Fox blew eyes wide, and as a flustered Lucy stormed past us, an angry aura surrounding her. I turned around to see Alex, lost in thought as he went back into his room and closed the door. I could see those green eyes filled with despair. "Fox, I think I'm going to go check up on him," I said. He nodded and trotted off. I walked up to the door and took a deep breath before knocking on it. Maybe Alex needed space. But sometimes when someone you loved hurt you, you drown in your thoughts. I knew the feeling all too well. It hurts even more to be alone. And no one should go through that. Especially not Alex. When I finally came around to knocking on the door, Alex opened the door almost immediately. His green eyes hopeful, but the look faltered when he noticed it was just me. My stomach involuntarily lurched. I had always gotten that look from people in my old pack. The look people gave you when you're just the second choice, and not the first. A section. What the hell would I say? Here's the list. I handed it to him, and without saying a word he scanned it over and knitted his eyebrows. I said, standing on my tiptoes trying to peer over his shoulders. "How did you manage to get this all done so fast?" "As far as I can tell, there aren't any mistakes on here." "Nice job. Feed us," he said, clearly impressed. Whatever sadness was in him a few seconds ago had been masked. He hid it from me, and I didn't want that. I just wanted him to confide in me and trust me. But if I asked him about it, then he'd find out that I'd been eavesdropping. "Thanks." I grinned. I stepped into the room and dived onto the bed. I undid my messy side braid and sunk into the bed, closing my eyes in bliss. I lifted one eye open a moment later to catch Alex staring at me from afar. "Best. What's up?" I whispered. He blinked, then smiled his crooked smile. "Sorry, it's just weird to see someone else in my bed," he replied, placing the list on his desk. "So now what?" "I just have the rest of the day off." I closed my eyes again. That sounded nice, just me and the bed. For the rest of the day, surrounded by the many gray pillows and the soft blue blanket. Yeah, that sounded absolutely amazing for a loner like me. "Well, since you finished so fast, then yeah. I still can't believe you're actually good at something," he sighed. I shot up from my position and sat up straight. "Hey, what's that supposed to mean?" I glared. "I'm good at a lot of other things. Like walking and reading effortlessly." Alex laughed, and it made me feel 1,000 times better knowing that it was a real one. It was nice to him so upset. "I assume you're just going to sleep. Read, or eat when you're not working?" he asked, perching on the edge of the bed. "You know me so well." "Old guy," I said, content life flopping back into the pillows. "I've been watching you for 3 weeks now. You're pretty easy to read," he commented, flopping back on the foot of his bed. He yawned and looked like he could stay in that position forever. "Whoa, you're such a creep. Why have you been watching me?" I chortled. "I get it. I'm super pretty, but I don't think I want a sugar daddy." He laughed even more this time, which soon got me laughing along as well. "Me, a sugar daddy?" "Guessed. First of all, I'm not that old. I'm only 20. And second of all, I work 2 freaking jobs. I don't think I'm even rich enough to be one. So it'll pass." He grinned. I didn't say anything this time, but just watched Alex at the foot of his bed looking exhausted. I could tell he was a hard worker, and it seemed like he hadn't gotten any proper sleep in a while. He seemed tired in general, not only physically but mentally. Whatever was going on between him and Lucy clearly was draining him even more, and I wished that there was something I could do to help. Eventually, his breathing became steady and shallow, so I slipped off of the bed as stealthily as I could, which was easy since I was on the other side of the bed. I swiftly grabbed the plush blue blanket and lightly draped it over him. He needed his alone time and unquestionably some real sleep. I grabbed my coat, my boots, and, of course, my book. I guess I would read somewhere else than outside on the massive marble porch sounded nice. Although there was a crazy amount of snow for late October, I liked it for some reason. It had its elegant charm. As I silently made it outside, I found an unoccupied cozy chair at the side of the big porch. I sat down and rested my book on my lap, giving myself time to think. Christmas was coming soon, and it gave me an uneasy feeling, even though I really loved my new pack so far. I don't think that it survived the holidays without my closest friends. I remembered how Amber and I would always go shopping together last minute to get everyone presents. On some nights, Arizona and I would sneak into Amber's room in the dead of the night to watch tacky holiday movies. I remembered how it'd be running around the small wooden pack house, helping around with small odd jobs and frequently getting scolded by old people. But the memory that I loved the most was on every Christmas Eve. Dom would come into my room and would stay up until midnight to give each other our presents first. I couldn't just let go of these things. Yet we were all split up now. Arizona moved away to God knows where. Amber was living in a whole new pack with her mate, and Dom and I were on the other sides of the country with a jeopardized friendship. Who knew things were going to turn out like this? My eyes became misty. No, I told myself, you're not weak anymore. Not everyone receives a second chance to practically restart their life. I took a reassuring breath and shivered when the icy cool air filled my lungs. I shook my head and finally opened my book and began reading.